People are finding out how complicated construction is, that just because there's a bare piece of ground doesn't mean that a contractor or builder can go in and get started.
We've got to look at ways we can streamline housing costs and streamline the process so that we can attract more builders and more of our community to come in and help be part of that solution.
I've been telling people there are two slogans in our county. There's Sonoma Strong, which is kind of the positive, we can do this, we can rebuild. But I've adopted, I think we have a second theme, Sonoma Uncertain, because people aren't sure what they want to do. The home I had, can I afford to do that? Do I want to sell my property and go start anew somewhere?
But the ripple effects that have happened since then continue to happen. The dominoes continue to fall. 3,000 families lost their place to live in a city where we had a housing crisis on October 8th before the fire started.
We lost 5% of our housing, so we have to be way more bold, way more aggressive in building the housing, not just for the people who were affected by the fires, but for the people who were displaced prior.
In the building world, there's a great old saying that they just ain't making dirt like they used to. And so any property in the wine country here is extremely valuable, and it will, if it's zoned for housing, it's going to have a house built on it.
To build here right now, it's so expensive. If you hadn't updated your insurance since maybe you bought in the downturn when stuff was cheaper and didn't update it when the market picked back up, well, you're going to be in the hole just because of the market.
There are people that were devastated by not just losing the dwelling, the walls and the roof, they lost their lives and their possessions.
So I left a bunch of stuff there. But about 3 days later, we're up at a friend's house. I got in the back of my truck and there was this green suitcase in there. I don't remember this. So I opened it up and in there was an album of photos. My daughter.
I stepped into my room and just like looked around and was like, there was my bed and there was this and there was that. And that was really hard to take in. My
wife's father was killed in Iraq, and we had his uniform, his dog tags, his flag, some Memorial Challenge coins.
There's a dog tag we found.
We were able to find a good deal of it. It's all messed up and burnt and ruined, but you know, we have it.
There were estimates that in Sonoma County, 2/3 of people, maybe 63 or 4%, own the home they live in, and a third or more were renters. Well, if they didn't have renter's insurance and if they'd lost their dwelling, I'm equally worried for people who are renters because they've lost everything.
You know, it is difficult to build in Sonoma County and in particular California. And so we've got to look at ways we can streamline housing costs and streamline the process so that we can attract more builders and more of our community to come in and help be part of that solution.
People are finding out how complicated construction is, that just because there's a bare piece of ground doesn't mean that a contractor or builder can go in and get started.
A lot of people thought, oh, we just scrape the dirt clean, I can start putting sticks in the ground to build. It's not even close. I've been an insurance broker since 2008, and I know how insurance works, and I have a lot of builders and developers that are clients, and I know how they work, and I was just seeing things that weren't practical for the scenario that we were in.
If I had to summarize what I've learned, every one of the fire victims, not only in Sonoma, but throughout the rest of the North Bay, they want and need a building buddy.
A group of people in Coffee Park formed an organization. They're now a 501c3 called Coffee Strong. And what was great about that, community coming together to help each other without having to take credit for anything. They've dealt with it already, so they know how to point people in the right direction.
Coffee Strong started 2 or 3 weeks after the fire. It's kind of like an advocacy and information group, information sharing group. And I put together this panel discussion with some elected officials and some city staff, some builders, and some insurance people to just say, hey, here's how insurance reacts, here's how the build process goes, and here's where the city is. It's just started to snowball.
You know, we've got about 900 permits that are out there, rebuild permits. So we're approaching a third of the people who lost their homes.
And we had a 1% vacancy rate. And so we were just sitting there after the fire looking at it and just like, oh man, like we're a whole heap of trouble.
Whether you think things have gone well or not depends on your own particular situation.
The prices to rebuild here, I mean, there's a lot of factors. Just one, the labor cost, the contractors, I mean, and they're charging fair market value, but it's expensive.
We've been talking since before the fires about not just rebuilding the 3,000 homes we lost on the night of October 8th and 9th. I don't want to get 5 years down the road and be celebrating in 2022 that we've rebuilt everything and we're back to 2017. What's proposed is a housing bond, an affordable housing bond.
It's being called the Housing Recovery Bond. That's the official name. It's on the November ballot.
The Housing Recovery Bond is an extraordinarily important tool for us to be able to build the housing we need to build in our community.
Because the housing that's going to be supplied is for up to 80% of the average median income. These are the folks that need it most.
It's partially to help fire victims, but we had an affordable housing problem before the fires, so I think this bond measure would have been placed on the ballot even without the fires because the need was there.
It's not the total solution. There's a lot of things that need to happen to get our housing crisis fixed, but it's a beacon of hope that allows us to kind of keep working on those things, and it provides us some more immediate resources to really, get aggressive about building the housing we need to build in Sonoma County.
So we had a housing problem long before the fires, right? I think we all acknowledge that there's a problem. Then you lose a large number of homes like we have. It turns a problem into a real crisis. So we recognize that and truly want to try and find a way to solve this problem, but we won't let that happen at the cost of an exploitated workforce.
It's got a tough road to hoe to get it passed because it requires 2/3 of voters to pass it, and it's hard to get 2/3 of people to agree that the sun is shining, let alone to pay more for their property.
Hey NBC News fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.